Hey there, CNCers! Scott here again for CNC Labs. As you may or may not know, we have recently moved into a new building, and we thought in honor of having our own dedicated space for workshops, tutorials, and other fun events that it would be super exciting to have our own sign in the room. So we are going to show you how we made a faux neon sign with flexible LED lighting and black acrylic. Let's go. I shouldn't have said let's go. It's not. Yeah. All right. Before we get too far into this, there is a fair number of products used in this video, so check out the links in the description below so you can see all of the flexible lighting and the wire and everything that I used. Check that out down below. While you're there, if you're enjoying what you're seeing on the channel, be sure to, click subscribe and hit the ding bell and all the things. We really do appreciate the love. And last but not least, safety. Exercise caution if you're not comfortable. I am not a certified electrician, but I'm having so close. I'm not a certified electrician, so if you are going to do this tutorial, just exercise extra caution. Here we are in VCarve. I'm gonna give you a hopefully super quick rundown of the idea that I had. You can see here in my little diagram that I wanted my sign to have some depth. So just so you can understand, this kind of rectangle here in the very bottom, that's the backer board that I make for it. And then there are some spacers glued onto that. That's what these kind of rectangles represent here. If you're looking at it from the side, they're spacers to give me some depth. And then this one on top right here is the black acrylic that we're going to put over top of everything, that the lights are actually going to sit in the little slots, the channels that we carve out. So bear with me. I'm trying to keep it simple, but I keep on making mistakes. So we're going to try and go through this kind of as quickly as we can. Obviously, my design is kind of here and ready to go, and I will show you on the sheets really quickly that there's my backer piece. These are all just some random, not random, they're actually very purposely laid out. These are all the pieces that I use to glue down to that backer board, and then you can see by my sheet name, acrylic. This outline here is the acrylic with all of this stuff chopped out of it so that lights fit in there. Let me show you how I kind of went through this process. So I found that the easiest way to predict the thickness of this light and little cap that I put on the ends of these is to have a center line on your font. You can see from my list here that importing vectors, if required, is not necessarily the first step, but it's what I did first. So I imported our CNC logo. I've used it before. It's all good to go. That's what happened there. Let's bounce over here. So, imported my vector. I scaled it up to the size that I wanted, and I also drew some rectangles that were the right width. So I believe they were 0.29 wide to get up here. So I drew a rectangle, I made it 0.29 wide, and I basically laid it in this one of the channels here, scaled it up till I got to the right thickness. That's all I did for the vector on the logo portion of things. You may not have one, so it may not matter. Where a lot of people I think are gonna have fun with this sign is making something that has text on it. The process will be the same whether or not you handwrite a font, take a picture and trace it, or if you just type in a font and trace the center line, the process is the same. So don't get too scared if I'm showing you my handwritten version. The actual font version would be the exact same idea. So all I am doing is importing my handwritten version of the workshop. There we go. You can see I wrote it a couple of different times to get what I was looking for, to get the right thing. You can see here that I've already finished the workshop word side of things, so I'm not going to do that whole thing, but I will show you the process on the word the, so you can kind of appreciate and understand what I'm talking about. So we'll move it down here so it's kind of in the right spot, and then I just used the draw line poly tool to trace my handwriting. Again, you can be as specific or not specific as you want. I'm right-clicking to exit the tool, and I'm using spacebar to get back into that command. Trace, right-click, spacebar. Again, I'm not being super specific. This is just going to be what we use to carve the channel that we're looking for. So there we go. There we go. Here we go. There we go. So at this point, you may want to adjust your curves if they weren't quite as clean as you'd like, and you can tweak to your heart's content. If you're not too worried about it, then you don't have to worry about it. There we go. We have my word the. Obviously, it is not quite the right scale. Again, this center line is what we're going to use to offset to get the thickness of the light and or the cap if you have it in there. So I'm just going to delete my image because I don't need it anymore. There we go. Another fun tip is the left-right selection boundary. If you select from right to left, it will select everything that comes within that boundary box, even if it's not the entire object. You'll see right here, it's going to select the entire E. Wonderful. If you select left to right, it will only select whole objects that fall within that boundary box. So you can see on the E here, if I select all three, right? 1, 2, 3, it's only going to select the top and the middle because they're entirely within that bounding box. It will not select the kind of swoopy guy. There you go. Fun tip, good trick to know. Here we go. I'm going to scale my word "the" up as much as I kind of want. I'm going to rotate it a little bit. Again, this is all designer stuff that you can do whatever you want with. I'm not going to spend a ton of time playing with it, but that E could be a little bit bigger. Now we are getting into the whole reason for this center line thing. You have your handwritten or your traced font selected. We're going to go to the offset and layout. Because I know that I need my channel to be about 0.29 inches wide, I'm going 0.145, half of it. I'm going in both directions. I hit offset. Oh, you know what I'm actually going to do? Oh, fine. I'm going to hit continue anyways. It's just because there's some vectors overlapping. It's not a big deal. We don't need to worry about it. You could delete the original. I'm going to do that right now just to make it less confusing. There we go. We've started to, you can start to see the channels that you've created here. The next thing we're going to do is just ensure that the channels are what we want them to be. So I'm going to get rid of this and this. So any of the overlapping stuff we can get rid of because all we're trying to do is create the channels for the light strips to fit into. So I use my little scissors and I can see right there that there's a little adjustment that needs to be made. So I'm going into edit node mode and I'm just going to stretch that out a little bit. And then I'm going to go back to my scissors and trim the rest of this stuff out. And then the same thing here, trim, trim, trim. And again, I can see that I need to make a little quick adjustment. So we're gonna do that. And then we're gonna use our scissors again to finish off creating these channels that we need. Now, again, I can see there that that's not gonna create a channel. So I'm just going to nip that in the bud and I'm going to make it myself and finish this off. Now we don't have to worry about it. Ta-da! Cool. To finish off making these channels, we need to end these caps. So you could draw polylines if you want to, or you can select the 2 open lines and you can go down here to the join close vector. Automatically does it for you. Go around the horn, just keep clicking, it did that one, and then if you click it again, it'll finish it off. We now have a T channel that our light will fit in snug as a bug in a rug. I'm gonna do that for the rest of my letters just to finish it off so you can get the idea. Doop, doop, doo. And then these last 2, you only have to select them once and it'll do 1 and 2. Same thing for my E, right there. Ooh, I think that's gonna do both in one. 1, 2. We have created the channels that we need from the center line. That's kind of the biggest tip that I got from this is it allows you to, because sometimes the thickness is different. This is thicker than this one, so you can customize it. That is it for creating the thickness that you need for your light strips. To run through the rest of this fairly quickly, I needed, some sort of outline, boundary, shape, something or other, if you want to be that black acrylic. So that's what the pink line is highlighted here. I offset my circle. I drew a rectangle with some radius corners on it to give me that outline, snazzy fazzy. This is what my black acrylic is going to look like. That's that top layer. That's this one over here. So the only other thing that I just kind of quickly want to run through is the backer and the spacers sheet. You can see here that this outline looks very similar to the black acrylic one. I inset it a little bit so we didn't see it. And then I took some of the chunks on here, sliced and diced them, placed them around my sheet so that I could have my backer board. Let me highlight. There's my backer board right there. And then all of these little pieces are going to get glued on top of that backer board. And then the black acrylic will go on top of that. So I get some depth, some thickness to my sign. Everything was a profile toolpath. There was nothing too crazy about any of it. I think I used the same settings that I did for the guitar pick guard tutorial because it allowed it to get cut out really easily. Let's go through my settings. There we go. So yeah, I used the 16th inch down cut on this. I wanted it to be a smaller bit so that I could get into all those corners and not leave great big radiuses. my feeds and my speeds the same as the guitar pickguard tutorial. Sorry, I already said that. But it allowed it to cut through the acrylic, no problem. It didn't leave too much melty, and if it did leave some in the channel, you can run it again and it'll clear it out pretty quickly. For the backer board, it was just 1/8 inch fiber board, so the 16th inch bit had no problem going through it whatsoever. You can speed it up a little bit if you want to, but I just used the same settings across the board and it blew through everything, no problem. I added ramps like I always do. I named them. There was no crazy order on this, so we'll hit calculate. And then we can preview selected. Oh no, I didn't have everything selected. That's gonna make a difference. Here, let me grab it. Hold on. Let me select everything so we can kind of get a view of what we're doing here. And now we can hit preview selected. And there you go. So this would be our black acrylic, and this is a fun little thing. We can click on all the things we want to get rid of. So this is what we would end up with after we've made our channels. Obviously I can click the rest of it, but there's our black acrylic, and then the backer board would just be a little bit smaller with these pieces kind of glued in place to give me that depth. Really and truly, that was about all there was to it. That center line with either a font or a handwritten text was kind of the main takeaway, and then everything else is just making sure that your lights will fit. Oh, I did forget one thing, and they're looking at me right there. On the backer board, these little holes should actually be on the backer board. If I'm being totally honest, that is my mistake, but watch how quickly we can move it over with that left, right, selecty thingy. Move to sheet, backer board. I'm going to show you what this is, and then we are almost done. Where's my sheets? Here. There we go. So if this is my backer board, obviously I have some LED strips that are going to need to tuck in there, and I have some wires that are going to need to poke through there. You can drill these holes with the LongMill, and you can do them here, or you can do them after manually. It really doesn't matter. I did it here because I kind of wanted to visualize how these little strips were going to fit in there, so I did. So I added some holes in there. They're 1/8 of an inch. They're wide enough to fit my 2 wires in there nicely, snuggy. And then that was about it. So the design was a little bit finicky to work through in the initial stages. Once I got there, it was very simple. We're going to finish this off. This is it for the design side of things. We are going to carve out some black acrylic. I've already got the backer pieces cut out and glued and painted, so they're good to go. So we're going to go and we're going to cut out some acrylic, and then we are going to assemble this big sandwich, and we'll show you how we soldered some wires and how we cut the strips too. So let's go carve some fun. All right, so we're just gonna trim these pieces. These black lines are where you can cut a little bit past so you have extra copper pad. When you start doing it, you'll understand. So I have lots of extra there and lots of extra there. So I'm gonna give it a little trim. I am going to mark this as a T1, and this can be T2 because there's gonna be a strip and a strip. So there's T1, and this is the bottom. T1 right there, and then T2 is going to be something like that. Again, you can see where those black lines are, so I'm lining the black line up so I get at least one good copper pad on there. Trim. It is this easy, and I'm labeling them just so that I don't lose track of what they are, right? So you can see that that's too short, so we're going to go an extra length, and then we'll trim off the extra afterwards. There, H1, H2, and H3, I guess I'll figure out as the little guy. So this is H1, and I'll do H2 next. That is going to literally be one little nub. So that's going to be H3, doink, and so on. Here's just another example of that black line. So when you pull this strip out, there's the black line they tell you to cut on. The problem is, if you cut right on that black line, you're cutting your copper pad in half, and it's a lot harder to solder to. So if you cut past it, like I was saying, then you have the whole copper pad to solder your work to, and then you can just trim off the extra when you're done. We need some wire to solder all of this to. If you looked at where I put my holes in my VCarve file, they're all kind of clustered together, so I don't need a ton of wire, so I'm just gonna kind of give it that much. I found it was easier to split the wires. Yeah. Strip the wire, okay, and then to expose these copper pads that are on here, you gotta find the front and the back. For me, it was the solid white side that was the, whatchamacallit, the back side, and then I just take my knife and just kind of give it a little slice down. You may not have to do this. This is just the way that I saw and I found worked really nicely. So once I put those 2 slices, I get my copper pads. Yay! A little bit further just so I can not mess with it. And I'm well aware that my knife safety skills are not as good as they should be right now. You don't have to worry about telling me that. I'll give this guy a little clippy in here, and then we're gonna come over here with this guy, and the way I remembered it was black is bottom. So the bottom of the strip is the white part, and the top would be positive as the colored part, so black is bottom. And I got a little bit too much wire there, so we're gonna go. All right, so we're gonna just kind of do this. Line it up close to what we need. Grab my solder, grab my soldering iron, and then that is not a strong connection. Oh, let there be light. There we go. Negative, solid. Positive, we're gonna do the same thing. That might be working. And then to test, we hook up, oh, that's why I had to strip both ends. Scott fail. Because every section that I did, I tested, because it would be kind of pointless in waiting till you put it together. So we're gonna hook up a negative to a negative, a positive to a positive, and the 12-volt power supply that comes, or that you have to buy with the lights will tell us if, yes, I know what I'm doing. Now we're gonna do that about 30 more times, and then we're gonna install it. Don't you know that you have to leave it half an hour and I want to get the whole thing done? All right, we're on to Operation Tricky, and I call this tricky because this is our black acrylic that needs to be glued down to our backer that has all of our spacers already glued on. These are also not glued down, but it's just a matter of lining this up that's gonna be a little tricky. So I'm gonna make sure that the back of this is clean. I'm gonna grab some CA glue, super glue, and I'm just going to spread it around, and I'm gonna put this on with some weights, and hopefully I've got it set, and we'll, you know, see how it turns out. Alrighty, headless host back in session. I've got all my pieces super glued down. I put enough super glue on those pieces to probably sink a battleship, and my application was kind of, you know, weird at best, but here we are. Time for the fun part. Like I say, we've got all those holes drilled in for where I think the wire should probably feed through. If you didn't do it in your design file, you can always do it now. Just grab a drill bit and go through. I think I used a 30 seconds bit to make these wires fit nice and snug and easy through. So I've got all my things labeled here. I've got my lights labeled here, and now we're just going to fish all the wires through and time lapse a whole bunch of me doing the same thing over and over again. So time lapse can start now. You can see that I cut out the middle of these little end caps here to allow it to be more snug. Allow the LED light to fit a little more snug in the channel there. So if you notice that you're having some spots that are a little bit loose and you want it to look a little more LED or neon-y, you can just cut out the middle of it and add them anywhere you need them. Our sign's flipped over, we've got all our wires poking through, and now it's time to just start grouping like pairs. I apologize about the crazy bright light, but I needed some bright light to see what I'm doing down here. So we're gonna start grouping positive and negatives together. I'm probably going to use some heat shrink tubing, these little guys, to make sure that everything is nice and tidy and as safe as we can make it. And once I've got that all grouped together, then it's gonna be test time and see if this sign actually lights up. There you have it, folks. One faux neon sign for whatever space you're trying to spice up. I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually thrilled with how this turned out. There were some bumps along the road, but that's to be expected, and you know, it's the design process, you gotta work through it. So hopefully you found it, not hound it. Hopefully you found some of the tips and tricks that I shared earlier helpful, handy, all the good things. If you did and you like what you're seeing here, please like and subscribe and ding the notification bells. We appreciate the support. We love hanging out with you, and we hope you love hanging out with us. So I'm going to take my fancy neon sign, and I am going to make a special delivery to one Andy Lee at the new office building. So stick around for that. We have our own dedicated, nope, I'm doing it again. I'm not Louis, I can't pick up where I left off. He's gonna love hearing me say that.